criminal counts. Joining us now, CNN political commentator Bakari Sellers, CNN political commentator and former special assistant to President George W. Bush, Scott Jennings, and CNN senior legal analyst Ellie Honig. Don't give me that look, Scott. I think
himself.
Throughout the course of this morning, it's the pause and think, 91 charges over the course of 4+ months. There's no precedent for any of them for a former president. He's leading the Republican primary by 25 to 30+ points. No one's attacking him that's anywhere close to him in polling on these indictments. Scott Jennings, why not?
Well, because more than half of the Republican Party, maybe 55% of the Republican Party, sees this presidential campaign as a referendum on the treatment of Donald Trump. And that's the primary electorate. Now, the general election electorate will see it much differently. They'll see it as a referendum on how their lives are going and the economy and so on and so forth. But in this pool of people, they see it all as a referendum on the treatment of Donald Trump. And they're not asking themselves, do we want to have a general election about Joe Biden's job performance or about Donald Trump's, persecution? They're just seeing this as a way for him to be able to vindicate himself against all this Democratic persecution. And the rest of these Republican candidates know it. They don't know what to do about it. None of them have figured out what to do about it. And I don't suspect any of them are going to figure out what to do about it. I mean, right now he's sitting in the mid-50s in this thing. Even if he were in the mid-40s, he would almost be unbeatable in a fragmented field.
So here's my question. A, can you tell me that any of the other dozen-plus candidates would look at this and think, that's cool. These 98 pages with Trump and his team and the 18 co-conspirators, we're good with that.
For themselves?
No, like in general.
Like maybe for president of the
exactly.
United States.
So what should they do about it?
I mean, look, they're all trapped. All the Republicans are trapped. They're trapped in a room with Donald Trump. He's not trapped in there with them. They're trapped in there with him. But they're also trapped in there with his voters and the people who believe he has been unfairly treated. Those people are not going away, and they're highly likely to turn out in this primary. Not a single one of them has a strategy to deal with it other than this. Maybe Republicans decide, look, I just don't want to deal with this anymore. Who else is out there? But that's out of your hands. I mean, you're waiting on people to make that decision. And right now, there's no evidence that they are. There are people, I think, running interesting campaigns and saying interesting things. But that's different than actually convincing people to leave Trump by the wayside.
Yeah. Those are tough questions at 7 o'clock.
Narrower but way deeper look.
There's a level of magical thinking with Trump because he got out of 2 impeachments, because he managed to win the White House while not winning the popular vote. He's always carried this, well, he'll figure out how to get out of it. It's not, these indictments look bad, but there is this sense of magical thinking about him that, well, he'll find a way. Don't worry. He'll find a way to beat him in the end. He's not convicted yet, and he is innocent until proven guilty.
That's right.
It's an important point.
An indictment is a set of allegations.
And you look
we haven't seen the defense.
And you look at what's happened to him over the years and the things he's gotten out of. The hardest core supporter, you're wondering why they're not finding other candidates. Because that's one of the things they like about him the most, is that no matter what they throw at him, he finds a way to beat it. And they probably believe that about this.
Yeah, no, it's actually a very good point, particularly on the support. You often come in and you probably get attacked for explaining why base voters. But it's accurate, and I think it's important for people to understand that. I would note that the second impeachment he got out of in large part because people were saying, don't worry about it, the judicial process will take care of this to some degree. Yeah.
That was the argument of most Senate Republicans.
Yes.
Was that we can't do this now. The courts will deal with it. And here we are.
Well, when this case is tried, but I think there's very little chance this one gets tried before the election.
Yeah.
I mean,
and by the way, there's already broad dissatisfaction in the American electorate that we're even going to have this rematch if we have it. Throw on top of that these wild charges. I mean, this is crazy. I mean, unprecedented. Well, and we're not going to have a resolution to it before we cast our ballots.
I mean, this was going to be
me. I think the average person, like, how do you expect me to vote on this election when you've got these political allegations laying out there against one of the two candidates?
You don't vote for the one that's indicted.
But can you talk, Ellie, about how this trial is going to be different?
Yeah. It's been 7, 8 months. It's going to be the longest criminal trial like in the history of Georgia. So this is going to be a long time.
To answer your question, there is a cohort of Republicans who will not vote for a convicted felon. even if today you're like, he might beat this. This all might be made up by, but if he is convicted, I'm telling you, there is a cohort of voters, lots of Republicans who won't do it. You see it in some of the polling. I'm just telling you, people are not going to want to walk in there and associate their franchise with a convicted felon. So to put him up as the general election nominee, carrying a felony conviction in any jurisdiction, would be almost certain political death in the election.
It seems like a point, perhaps, that somebody running against him in a primary would want to make after an indictment.
Stop asking them to be courageous, Phil.
Wow, we'll leave it at that. We're going to get back to all of this.
For the record, that wasn't directed at Scott.
I know.
It's never directed at Scott. Everybody's always like, goes after Scott Jennings, and I'm like, no, he's just explaining what's actually happening.
I know you were making that point in jest.
Nobody else got the rap in their ear?
But
just me?
I think we're beyond the rap. But I think it's a really good point, Bakari. You were saying it in jest, but it's actually so true.
If I were sitting here and I was advising Nikki Haley or Tim Scott or somebody else with a modicum of talent, I believe they have talent, I would say, look, today is make or break time. I mean, sink or swim. Do we stand for something? Do we show that we're courageous or not? And the fact is, you're not going to win this nomination without doing something different. Being Trump light, that's not working.
Well, that's a good point. What you're currently doing isn't working. You could try something else. I mean, I am dubious that it would work, but for most of the people you just mentioned, they're. I mean,
you've been at 4% since January.
Did you rip your ear out because you were tired of them yelling at you?
I thought if I took it out, I wouldn't be able to hear you anymore. Yet I still
right. All right, we're about to
hear it.
We'll have you guys back.
Thanks,
We're going
guys.
to get to this
Appreciate
in a moment, but we still want to keep our focus and.